All right, Brody, who's going to win this Age of Empires game?
Alright everyone, welcome back to another game replay in Age of Empires IV. This is a quick play, 1 versus 1, and it is a French mirror with me in the blue and my opponent in the red. So, I'm going to be showing you guys the replay today because this was a pretty insane game. I still could not believe how this one turned out at the end. It was pretty insane. So I'm going to commentate that here for you guys and show you some of the highlights as we go on through. So I got the whole map revealed, and we'll switch kind of between different points of the map here and just kind of give you guys an overview of what was happening. So kind of to start us off here, I tried something very different for this specific matchup. Normally my strategy when I'm playing the French is to go straight for gold and lots of food, go for those French knights that people really are keen on with the French, to do that 3 Royal Knight opening, and yeah, I mean that definitely is kind of a meta strategy, but I wanted to try something different here. And alright, so we're going to turn that game volume down just a bit to help with the audio. And so as you can see here, you got some villagers on food, you got some on wood over there, you know, building a mill, all that good stuff, kind of focusing on that wooden food for this matchup. And meanwhile, on the other side of the map, the opponent, the French, also focusing very heavy on food, also getting a little bit of wood at the outset of the game here. And you can see from my point of view, I had a couple scouts going out on the southeastern portion of the map, heading up, and then on the western edge of the map, just scouting those edges and kind of working my way in, as I like to do. The opponent was kind of their scouts doing a little bit more of a zigzagging pattern, you know, patrolling a little bit of the edges over here with the one scout. The other one was kind of looking at my base, which was smart. Something I tried for this one that I found, it was a little bit of a meme, but also interesting, you know, just almost creating like a sort of wall of houses here as I snaked my way down to the south with houses, not really bunching up too much around that town center, but just branching outwards with that. I've never really tried that before. Looked kind of goofy, but it was interesting to try that. So that was pretty fun. I'm going to enter cinematic mode here for a little bit. Just kind of show off parts of the map. In the center here, since this is a Lipany on the Asian subtropical biome, lots of trees, little hilltops, mountains, some of them closed off, others accessible. You know, lots of areas that on these sorts of maps could be used for fortresses and walls and just secret bases. That you know, all that stuff is really interesting with Lipany maps. Much the same as the Mongolian Heights one tends to have a lot of just very strange late game plays with miniature forts in and around the map. So that's always a selling point for these types of maps. Go back into regular spectator mode here. And yeah, a few minutes into the game, putting more villagers on wood, still gathering up that food from the berry bushes, and at that point I had villagers on gold as well, which kept it very healthy with that stream of gold income, which is very important for Royal Knights, for unit upgrades and aging up and all that kind of good stuff. So super important to get it on that as early as possible. For this one, the opponent was on the ball with a pretty early age up. You know, about 4 or 5 minutes in already, got that second landmark, and you know, I was trailing behind. Actually, I did not have mine on the field quite yet at this point, as you can see. Going back to player select only, And at this point, 4 minutes in, still scouting the map, hanging onto those sheep so that they don't get them, but focusing down those berry bushes to keep that food production rolling in. Yeah, the nice thing about the French civilization is those villagers train very quickly, so it gives you plenty of opportunities to, especially if you've got 2 or 3 town centers, to really boom up very quickly with lots of villagers, which is nice, because the more you have, the better your economy is, and helps with the arms race, certainly. Yep, so Scout was getting focused down by the town center, but was able to get away. At this point, pretty much the whole map explored, right as they reach that feudal age, and just kind of scouting out the edges of their base a little bit. Alright, I'm going to fast forward a little bit here. And as I'm going at 8 times speed, you can see some of the bases start to take shape here as we're getting wood, food, extra houses getting built up on both sides. There's that snake of houses all the way down to the south that I mentioned. Just a very weird type of base build that I wanted to try. The knight coming in, forcing the villagers off the food, getting that landmark up right at about 8.5 minutes, and then a shit ton of towers. With all these houses, in case of royal knight charges, as were happening over on the western side of the base, wanted to have some kind of defense handy to protect that gold and that stone, and just give somewhere to retreat to if there was some sort of need. Just such a weird looking base, but interesting nonetheless. And then going back into cinematic mode, as you can see here, there are swarms of knights that they're bringing onto the field, heading out on the eastern side of the base, getting ready for those raids. I'm going to slow this down to 4 speed here. And again, at about that 12-minute mark, the opponent, getting some wood walls up and some outposts, really smart play. Offensive because even though these are defensive buildings, it's basically expanding their base closer to mine, kind of boxing me in, forcing me into one small corner. Just a very smart move, interesting play, and it's always funny when people do that because it changes the whole dynamic of that match. It just changes the map for both of us and kind of where the play is happening. Yep, and more towers on the western side here. I'm going to speed this up just a bit. Yep, so all those towers going up. Meanwhile, I'm getting an army of French knights ready. Hoping to get some raids out and maybe play a little bit defensively in case if any battering rams were to be built and sent into my base. A lot of those ram rushes in the feudal age, very common. I'm going to slow it down here. As you can see, my villagers responding to the outpost on the western side of the base. Put a stone wall up to try to keep any units out, and just kind of put another barrier to help me kind of protect against that offensive play there. So as you can see, the tower's still firing over the wall at the mill there, but that's hardly an issue. Those things have 750 health, and only taking 1 damage a pop is not really something that to worry about. So that's pretty easy to just kind of let that tower do its thing, just ignoring the attack alarm and stuff like that. And then on the eastern side of the base, the French knights on my side did all go down. Lost about 15 out of 20 units there. The 5 remainers that survived put them right in the town center to keep them alive. Arrows firing off defensively, enemy retreats. Pretty typical that you'll see that with knights. As they get away, they're able to heal. For the French knights, they have that unique ability. And about at this point, the numbers are a little bit evened out, but definitely still on the defensive as I'm kind of boxed in here, as you can see. Farm transition is well underway. Tons and tons of farms and villagers just out there gathering food, using up all that wood that I'm gathering to build a huge farm base back there and get a very stable food production going. Speed this up just a little bit to 2 times. Going into cinematic mode as well. Yep, so the tower is focusing down some of those villagers, but you know, there's so many in a mass there that I'm able to just keep them moving and doing stuff. Even losing a couple did not really hurt too bad. As you can see, they're putting some more walls up on the north and northwestern sides of the map towards my base. Just again, kind of keeping a defensive wall in case of any rams, just keeping the enemy out. And the goal is to funnel them through into this eastern portion of the base where it's wide open and exposed. You know, a lot of houses there, kind of ripe for the destruction, ripe for the taking. You know, risky to do it that way, though. That's was a very risky move for sure. And as you can see, they were kind of stealing some of that stone on the western side. You know, really interesting play there, and I can appreciate that. Where you know, as soon as you can get your villagers out onto the enemy side of the map and gobble up as many of their resources as you can, you know, if it turns into a protracted fight in the late game, that can make all the difference, because then they're at a disadvantage having fewer resources on their side of the map, whereas you've got your whole collection on your side to draw from. So it's definitely very smart to, you know, send even one over and just start picking away at those stone or gold mines. It can make a huge difference in the late game. At this point, we're about 21 minutes in. Not a whole lot of action happening quite yet, so we're going to speed this up a little bit more. Right now, it's more that just construction of buildings and training of units and all that kind of good stuff, setting the stage for the end game here. I went full in on stables. Usually don't do that. Usually go a mixed infantry of spears, archers, arbaletria, you know, all that kind of stuff. Knights, horsemen, something a little bit more mixed is generally beneficial. But we're all horsemen and knights here, sending a small army to blow up that tower on the western side and protect the farmers. Meanwhile, you've got the enemy knights holding down this forest here, this stealth forest, and these villagers here, as you can see, they are marching south over near one of their towers, and they are going up to the Imperial Age while I am still in the Feudal Age. That is a big play right there. To be 2 ages behind is very tough. That is a humongous disadvantage. So while that is going on, you know, this is the moment where, with all that wood I've banked up from these forests that I've been chopping down, as I'm getting knights onto the field, horsemen, start building blacksmiths, markets, you know, to get those units, the upgrades coming through, all that stuff that's going to make my units more effective on the battlefield. And also building a guild hall so that I can get up to age 3 and really start marching on those upgrades. That was definitely the goal here. At this stage as well, you can see the enemy has monks on 2 of the 3 sacred sites, and they are getting tons of extra gold a minute from that. So that is an advantage there as well. Tons of barracks, archery ranges, and things all coming up across the map at this point as well. Some of those archery ranges not quite built yet, but definitely in a moment you'll start seeing those coming up. 5 or 6 barracks over there. That's a very, very good, healthy production behind the scenes. A lot of gold mining going on. So at this point, they've got 2 castles on the right side, on that eastern flank of my base. They've got mixed infantry with swordsmen, knights, all that kind of stuff. So powerful, in fact, that they're able to use the buildings alone to just snipe down those blacksmiths. You can see they don't stand a chance. It takes under 10 seconds to blow up one of those buildings with that red palace. Just absolutely shreds it like a machine gun. So that is very interesting at this point of the game. However, got 2 blacksmiths back here and the guild hall collecting on gold generation that they can't quite target. So it's kind of still working behind the scenes here. That construction was not a total waste. Meanwhile, those knights and horsemen just still beefing up that army as that food production comes through. At this point, have 34 farms all popping off every minute, and lots of villagers on wood and gold as well. Behind the scenes, you can see the enemy, still hitting that wood, the gold, also doing a farm transition with lots and lots of farms here. Looking at their counter, they've got 31 farmers. They've got 36 on wood, 19 on gold. Their total villager count at 108. That is incredible. That is a lot of villagers. I mean, that is an insane amount. Working across the map, getting stone, gold, wood, just resources out the wazoo here, which is very good for them. So that's interesting. Wolf coming for the monk. Over as he's going for that 3rd sacred site. Can he make it? We're going to speed this up just a little bit here, since it's kind of a lull in the match again. And as you see, the monk does successfully capture the sacred site. The wolf can't quite kill him. Those monks are very, very sturdy against some of those wild animals. They can still hold up even when under attack like that. And he's sprinting away. So at this point, they've got all 3 sacred sites under their control. And therefore the counter begins at that point. It is a 10-minute timer that if I can't recapture one of those or beat them in some way in the meantime, then I would lose the game. So that is a very significant challenge here. So to counter that, my giant army of horsemen and knights here, probably about 90% horsemen, moving them to the front of the base. And going back to my stats here, total military count of 86. So still fewer than 100 cavalry on the field, but certainly enough to get an attack going here. So the cavalry do ride out. Cavalry are coming. And because these walls here on the mountainside are not yet finished, not even under construction yet, just planned, can just ride right through, just sneak on through with them unable to counter it, and immediately move on that sacred site here, as you can see, and just swarming around it, quickly recapturing that site from the enemy. Meanwhile, the other 2 are firmly in their control. And from my point of view, this is all you can see from my end. We see this one sacred site where my army is. We know the other 2 are under their control, but we don't know the extent to which their base has advanced. We don't know where their barracks are. We don't know where the castles are, all the towers, all that stuff, since there's no scouts on the field. And meanwhile, this whole time, the guild hall is just doing its thing, slowly generating gold as I'm researching technologies, melee technologies to improve the armor and the damage that they deal out. Also the ranged resistance from towers and castles and things like that, and archers, just keeping them a little bit sturdier here as the fights begin. And now on the northern end of their base, you can see that I bring the cavalry in, and we're coming for them. At this point, we've got units on the field. We are ready to start dealing out some damage. Still waiting to get siege equipment on the field. Was able to batter down some of those walls mid-construction, as you can see here with the horses, because until it is fully constructed, your melee units can attack it and blow it up, while the wall is still under construction, which is an interesting strategy that can come in handy. Meanwhile, we've got a second army of horsemen that is on that next sacred site, capturing it, taking it out of their control, removing the gold per minute for the enemy. Another huge play here to try to wipe out some of their vast resources that they've got in play. And at this point, my army of cavalry just parading through the back of their base, taking out mills, mining camps, hiding behind the forest, ready for that next fight. Moving around, flanking, the smaller army of cavalry here engages the enemy near one of their extra town centers and their farms, killing villagers, distracting their main army so that this bigger force swoops in from behind and goes straight for the school of cavalry, the town center, these castles that are barely started under construction, and completely catches the enemy by surprise here, blowing up the school of cavalry and the town center, their main landmark, while they're still killing off the smaller army of horsemen there in the southern portion of their base. That I could not believe that actually worked. So then this big army of cavalry here, just parading through the base, going for the guild hall, blowing down farms, just blowing it up, burning it down, going for houses, everything, just anything in their reach, taking it out, going for their population, just really laying down the hurt here. And in the back of the base, you can see at this point I've also started sending some of my knights and horsemen just into the meat grinder here against their red palace, just diversion, just attacking it, chipping away at the health, and it is absolutely shredding these horsemen. 155 health, but it's doing 60 damage a pop, and just machine gunning them down. They got their torches out, and it's really just putting dents into the thing without actually really getting it close to going down. Meanwhile, this main army of cavalry here in the north of their base, just continuing to lay the hurt down, patrolling through, doing false retreats and false attacks against the enemy, just diverting their attention, keeping them focused on this other army here and not so much on what's going on down near my base. Pulling them back, kind of encircling their mangonels and the catapults here, just kind of not really showing the whole hand, not really alerting them to what I'm really trying to do, just riding around them basically, trying to avoid a full confrontation, because in a full fight those horsemen would lose to knights, spears, man-at-arms, all heavily armored, fully upgraded with lots of damage from universities and stuff like that. I mean, that is a losing fight if we commit to the entire battle there. So at this point, we've still got horsemen going into the meat grinder, just absolutely getting shredded by this machine gun of a castle, and the keep next to it, just in the tower, all of it, just slowly, chipping away at it, but just getting battered down in the process. Still attacking their base with my big army of horsemen up top, going for the houses, their population limit. We're gonna slow this down here. I want to see. So at this point, you can see it was affecting their population by taking down some of the houses. They were losing limits and able to train fewer soldiers, while I had the ability to go full 200, which makes a big difference in the late game. You need that population at 200 to put as many units on the field as possible between resource gathering and fighting and stuff like that. And we are coming up into the end game here. They've got 3 of their 4 landmarks down. In the landmarks tracker, you can see we got 3 left for myself, and they've only got 1 still standing, and that is the Red Palace right next to my base. Super smart that they put it there to kind of bring the pressure on me in the middle part of the game. But unfortunately, in this later part of the game, with all their landmarks here taken out, this becomes a hazard for them, that their one remaining objective is right in my jaws, able to go straight for it. Holding the cavalry back, just sitting idle, while I build the siege workshops with all these villagers coming down to the fight, and immediately getting trebuchets trained up. Mass trebuchets, 4, 5, 6, as many as possible, using that guild hall to get that extra gold, bringing them onto the field. And then the villagers, immediately as soon as that's done, go right back to gathering some more wood on this western side of the map. Meanwhile, the cavalry just parading through the base, keeping them distracted, taking out, anything they can, whether it's a villager, putting any damage down on buildings, all that stuff. And the trebuchets do begin to fire directly onto the Red Palace. And the victory is within our reach. We're parading the cavalry around, moving every which way around this map, keeping the enemy busy in their own base. And at this point, they start to realize something is amiss as they move their army south. And the last landmark goes down as the Red Palace is gone. And that is victory. That is an upset. Snatching it right away from them in just a cheeky way, coming through that western side of the base, blowing up the walls, parading through, taking down houses, all that stuff. Just, that was a pretty insane match. I thought that was, I had no business winning that. That was, it was very interesting. Well played by my opponents. They did a lot of really smart plays. And as you can see here in the timeline of the match history, they won almost every battle of this match. I mean, you see 6 major engagements, and in the first 4, they handily won it. Just on red X. That is their victory. They aged up first. They're aged 3 first, all the while winning 1, 2, 3, 4 victories, 4 different battles. And then we've got one small victory there, about 20 minutes in, and then you start to see that score ramp up on my side until about that 28 minutes in, where I had that big battle, blew up the 3 landmarks, and you can see that listed on the tracker as well. And then even as I'm losing units with this unit count, it doesn't matter. I mean, we still, even finishing lower score than they did as far as unit count goes, even lower score in general, between buildings, units, all of that. They had the upper hand and somehow was able to upset that. That is, you don't often see that kind of thing in quick play or ranked. So, as you can see, their total score, almost 2,000 points higher than me. The military stats, had only killed 38 of their units and lost 217 of my own. And still, just, focusing down those landmarks, it makes all the difference. That is the name of the game. That's just an interesting match. One of the craziest ones I've played in a while. So anyway, thank you for watching, and hope everyone is having a great day, and tune in next time. Thank you.
All right, buddy, so what did you think of that game?